Welcome to Labs Unleashed, a podcast from Lehigh University Campus Safety, where ideas are free to run, conversations are real, and curiosity is always encouraged. Hi, I'm Chad Bruckner. I'm a detective with the Lehigh University Police Department, and I'll be your tour guide as we explore the people, stories, and ideas shaping campus safety and life here at Lehigh. This podcast is about the humans behind the work, the thinkers, builders, and change makers who move our community forward. My goal is simple: to inform, engage, and build trust with you across campus. Labs Unleashed comes to you through the lens of campus safety, but the conversations go far beyond policy and procedure. We'll talk about everything from emergency call boxes to the inspiring individuals creating real impact here at Lehigh. Wherever you're at, our aim is to meet you there with content that's educational, relatable, and genuinely interesting. You'll hear less about polished outcomes and more about the process, curiosity, and moments that spark real change. The name Labs Unleashed carries special meaning for us. It honors Lehigh's beloved dogs, Grace, Scout, and Claire, our iconic Lehigh Labs, whose warmth and presence symbolize connection and care. It also reflects the spirit of this campus, a place where people are encouraged to think boldly, speak honestly, and engage without scripts. Here, labs aren't just rooms filled with equipment. They're spaces where ideas are tested, challenged, and even sometimes turned upside down. This is where innovators get unleashed, to talk honestly, think boldly, and share stories behind their work. More than a podcast, Labs Unleashed is a platform for connection, transparency, and shared responsibility. Guided by the same heart embodied by Grace, Scout, and Claire, we're here to inform, inspire, and elevate the lived experiences of our campus community. So join us and let's unleash the best within us together. Welcome to Labs Unleashed. Today's guest is the incomparable Jason Schiffer. Jason is the Associate Vice President of Campus Safety and the Chief of Police here at Lehigh. He has been in the policing profession for an astounding 32 years, previously serving as the Chief of Police in the City of Bethlehem. Jason has been leading campus safety here at Lehigh for 8 years now. He's an attorney, being a graduate of the Temple Law School, and he's also an avid mountain biker. Jason is married to a chemical engineer who graduated from Lehigh, and together they have 2 children. Personally speaking, Jason has been a friend and a mentor to me, and he's a big reason why I came to the Lehigh University Police Department. I'm excited to have this conversation with him. I think you're going to enjoy it. Enjoy the show. Jason, how you doing, sir? Thanks for being here today.
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
This is the first episode. I want to take a second and thank you because we would not be here without you. I came to you with this idea a few months ago, and you just let us roll with it and get you the info, and then you greenlit and gave the blessing, and I just appreciate that. It's not every day you get leadership that, in any industry, in any profession, any company, that lets the people just go out and run and then report back and then you make a decision. So I guess what I'm curious is how did you get to a place where you let people do that, run with their own ideas?
I think it was the evolution of my experience in the workforce. I spent 20 years as a police officer in the City of Bethlehem, and I had the fortune of getting promoted maybe 8 years into the job. It was promoted to sergeant, and then it was eventually put in charge of a specialty unit of community police officers. So I'd spent years working in that unit and then was put in charge of it. And during that time, I tried to adopt this. I tried to pull things from people who I worked for, wherever that may have been, tips and tricks and things that I thought were traits of a good supervisor, a good leader, and tried to employ that in that realm. And that was probably one of the biggest things of I viewed my role as the sergeant to do everything I could to give all of those officers all the tools they needed to do their job and then let them go. And time again, they continued to amaze me with the things that they come up with, the innovations that they developed, solutions to problems that I never would have come up with myself. And I think that was just a lesson that I learned, that if you allow people that latitude and that freedom to go out and do it on their own, they're going to amaze you. You give them guardrails, you give them guidelines, answer questions, you provide everything you can for them, but just let them run with ideas, and it's fascinating what they can come up with.
So policing, I'm curious on your thoughts on this. Policing has almost two models for leadership, and these are very overarching, but you have like a command and control model where everything's got to go up, everything's got to get approval. It takes away some of the autonomy of individuals. And then you have this empowerment model where, hey, you give everybody the space to run with their ideas. There are checklists and chain of command to follow, but they're very, in my opinion, and I've worked in different agencies that have different styles, the micromanaging command and control style, why it may be effective for operational purposes, the day in and day out, creates low morale. I don't think retention is as high because people want to go work for a place that is allowed to run with their ideas, and maybe not always going to be told yes, but some of the times will be told yes. And I'm just curious, was it a personal thing for you more than just the City of Bethlehem experience? How did you get to this place where you want people to go? And I've seen you do this in leadership meetings. You'll tell people to, hey, run your squads, run your platoons. You have the autonomy and the permission and support from me. And I just think it's an amazing thing. I'm just curious, like, how you got to that point. Was it an evolution, or you always thought that?
Oh, yeah, definitely an evolution. I didn't always think the way I think. I'm so happy that I don't think now the way I thought throughout my entire lifetime. I'd like to think that I'm evolving. We'll see. You could be the judge of that. But so I think it was a process, and again, like picking little bits and things that I learned along the way from others. So, it was never like this scripted plan, I guess.
When you came Lehigh about 8 years ago, is that right?
Just over 8 years ago, yeah.
And you had a job to change the culture, just to make it better than what it was. Not that it was, we're not here to speak about what it was, but you have a job and a mission to make this place a place that's more desirable, a more community focused. Did you want that command and control style when you first came here because you had to switch the culture, or immediately you came in and knew I have to do things a little differently?
No, I mean, I wanted to put my stamp on it. I came in as the chief of police, which brings with it its own set of challenges. Rising up within an organization, you know all the people, you know all the cultures, and it's an entirely different. So that's how I came up through the City of Bethlehem. Coming in as the chief here is an entirely, they don't know me, I don't know them. So I think people were, wary. Of course, they don't know what I'm going to bring to the table, but I knew I wanted to put that specific stamp on it and create, the culture that I would want to work in.
So, the people that don't know, Lehigh University is in Bethlehem, City of Bethlehem jurisdiction. So you starting there as a young patrolman, getting promoted, working all the way up to be the chief of police, then retiring and coming to Lehigh. What was that? I mean, the campus. You might not have worked on the campus, but this area. You probably knew some stakeholders that were affiliated with the university. Was that a easy transition from municipal to university, or more difficult than you imagined?
Short answer is that it was more difficult than I imagined. A little history: when I was in that community police unit, I was a bike cop on the south side of Bethlehem. So all of the geography that surrounded the university was my area of operations. So I interacted with Lehigh police for many, many years, and people from the university, doing things on campus, off campus, helping students who were living off campus. So I felt like I had a strong sense of this community, but you never know until you get in it.
What are some of the biggest challenges you've seen run into? I mean, you were a big city. How big's Bethlehem in the state? Officer-wise?
It was the 6th largest department at the time. I don't know if that's retained. There's some regional departments that might have surpassed that. But most police departments in Pennsylvania are single-digit numbers. Pennsylvania has a really interesting set of demographics when it comes to policing. I believe there's over 1,100 and nearly 1,200 police departments. Nearly all of them are a chief and a few part-time officers. So
it's nuts how small some are.
Bethlehem has 150 officers serving a community of about 75,000 residents.
I would imagine coming up through the ranks, being the chief of a major police department, big city police department in the Commonwealth, and then coming to the university, you had the tactical experience. That's not really in question. What did you notice coming here to a university setting that is just starkly different than being a municipal cop?
So some of the changes I wanted to implement, one of the things I did when I was in Bethlehem was create our professional standards division, which was a unit that combined like the key elements of a department. So the training, policy development and creation, internal affairs, and accreditation. So those four things working together are four major pillars of the department. But there was a staff of people. So I was the second in command when that was created. Having that group of individuals just at my fingertips, if I had an idea, I wanted a training program and needed a policy developed on a topic, that was easy. I could just kind of open the door, go into professional standards, PSD, and make my request made, and usually by the end of the day, I had some working model. Coming to a department that is still sizable for Pennsylvania with 26 full-time officers, there is no full-time staff to do that. So it was... Was
there a PSD at Lehigh?
No, okay. No. So there was me, and then trying to just identify, find others within the department with the knowledge, the skill set, and the desire to help do that work.
What's that like, trying to come in from a existing PD to a new PD? You're trying to just create I imagine any chief coming in will want to put their spin on the culture, but you had a specific plan, it seems like, to make this a more community-focused department. How tough is it to get buy-in, like from the general officers or leadership, or what's your thoughts on getting buy-in?
Well, trust isn't built overnight. I think you have to clearly, consistently demonstrate that you deserve the trust of others and earn that trust. Probably one of the biggest challenges was to get people to understand when I was asking a question like, what do you think? I really meant, what do you think? Not what do you think I want to hear, or I don't want to stamp on what I think. So that comes, or what comes with that is like tactically not revealing, like I would make sure I wouldn't tip my hat what I think on topics. If I'm in a meeting, do everything I can to speak last so that others get their opinion out there, because once I would say what I think, the danger is that others are going to be like, oh yeah, that's a great idea. And then you're just losing that ability to get these great ideas from others. But when I would ask, what do you think? And I'd get the answer, whatever you want is what I'm going to do. I would tell them, I appreciate that, but that's not what I asked. I really want to know what you think, especially from the seasoned officers, those that have been here for many years. They're the ones that knew this, knew Lehigh, knew the culture, knew everything about what our jobs were. Coming in from an outsider, it's no exaggeration, I was the dumbest person in the room. And I try to keep that in mind. Like I'm the one with the least amount of information, and I want to extract that knowledge from anybody else.
I want to talk about leadership for a second, because I admire the leader you are. I've worked for just so many different types of leaders. I'm sure you have too, all over the spectrum, from a authentic servant leadership-minded person, from a authoritarian command and control, yes or no kind of person. I have found, and I'm curious of your thought, that curiosity plays a big role in being a good leader. You have to be curious to want to have tough conversations, to want to know more than the surface shows. How did you get, and you are a very curious leader. I've seen in the meetings, and you'll ask everyone questions, you'll ponder, you'll sit, you'll ask follow-up questions. Where did that curiosity in your life come from personally?
I don't know where it came from. I think I didn't intentionally develop it, but it developed over time. Maybe law school and practicing law, being a trial attorney, that curiosity I think serves really well in that environment.
Interesting.
Any good lawyer, and I'm not putting myself in that category, but it was something I aspired to be. But any good lawyer needs to know and understand the opposing side of whatever they're on as well, if not better than their opponent, to truly represent their client. Like you have to, it's a full 360-degree understanding that you have to fully understand any issue. You can't look at anything, just narrowly with blinders on.
Yeah.
I didn't develop it from Ted Lasso, but watching that show, I think was one of my favorite scenes. Ted was at a dart game, and he talks about a quote from Walt Whitman that said, "Be curious, not judgmental." And I'll spare you the details of the entire scene. Watch Ted Lasso;
show.
it's fantastic.
Great show. Yeah.
So many lessons, but I think that articulated that point just so well. Just continuously ask questions, because, I mean, only a fool thinks they know everything about a topic or any subject.
About that scene, and I do want to talk about that for a
Okay.
second, because I feel the same way you did, and I watched it recently. I think you sent me the clip.
Yeah.
I watched it in 2020 during COVID. Everyone's locked in their house. I was just enamored with the show. Some of the things I took away, overarching with the character, is when there was conflict in the locker room, a lot of times leaders will either get upset, resentful, or they'll distance themselves from that. Ted was curious why that person's upset.
Yeah.
He asked questions. He wanted to know. He shared his perspectives, and he always was positive. So getting back to that, be curious, not judgmental. I mean, I know it's a trope to be that simple, but it really is to be a great leader. If you just don't judge as much and you're more curious about the people you're leading, there's no guarantee of operational success, but the relationships, the interpersonal, are probably going to be pretty good.
Yeah. But it's hard in practice, isn't it?
It is. Takes consistency.
Sure. We all fall into, whatever. You see the thing in front of you, and our minds go to like what we think that conclusion is. So I think you have to be intentional about that curiosity.
Is that hard as a chief executive officer of a police department? Because you have
Sure.
a lot of highbrow things and university stuff you're working on. How do you come into the PD and clear space? Because you're great at this. You'll come in everyone's office and just sit down and start a conversation. It could be the weather, it could be sports, it could be a case we're working on. And I think to myself, you did it the other day, like, doesn't he have a lot of stuff to do? Like, it's an impressive skill that not a lot of leaders will say, I'm too busy, go to the assistant chief, go to the lieutenant. But you carve space for everybody, and I'm just amazed how you do that.
Well, thank you. I don't feel like I do it well, but that is intentional. Like you talked about, we've all worked for people that fall short of what our desired goals. I think I mentioned this to you. There's the Jason I aspire to be, and then there's the Jason I am, and I feel like I am always falling short of that one that I aspire to be. But that doesn't mean you give up. But that intentionality to try to be present for whatever that is, and even if it's just a water cooler conversation, or talking about a case or something that that we might be actually needing to discuss. Yeah, there's always 100 things in my mind, including right now.
It's hard to be present, right?
It is hard, but you have to be. It's the same thing, like with our kids and everything else. It's really hard. We're always being pulled.
I mean, the cell phone's in our hands at any second, so it's just, you got to put it down. You have to, like, I used to have an Apple Watch, and I went to a Timex for that reason. I was just and I know you have one, because you need it, because you need to be plugged in information. I was just tired of my wrist vibrating. It always distracted me, so I had to get rid of it.
It is a challenge, and I'm not good at it. I get distracted by that all the time, especially when I'm not at work, because those are the times, like if I'm at work and something is happening, the likelihood of me being looped in right away is high. If I'm at home and something's happening, those are my only connections to if someone's trying to get a hold of me, if there's an issue on campus, if something that needs my attention. So I'm bad at that.
Yeah. But I guess being a chief, you have to know what's going on, right? You have to be plugged in. It's kind of comes with the job.
Yeah, if I could find out how to strike that balance, it would be awesome.
So one of the things I love coming to Lehigh, and you were big, and I want to share a quick story. You were a big reason I came here. And I was just amazed when you called me on the phone to come for an interview. I came in for the interview. You greeted me in the lobby, looking great in your Class A or your uniform. I was nervous. I'm coming in. I just published a book, and I was a little nervous because I wrote a book, How to Make Our Profession Better, and share personal stories throughout the book. And sometimes people could take that a little ornery or a little aggressive. But you shook my hand in the lobby, and you're like, oh, the book was awesome, and come on back, I'll introduce you to everybody. It's never happened. Never happened where somebody, usually we do panel interviews, everybody's kind of got that straight face because they're trying to
Oh, yeah.
set that boundary, that barrier. You break barriers. You're like just yourself. Amazing. I love it. I appreciate it. And that is coming to Lehigh and being around on this campus and being around all this innovation. How do you stay innovative in your approach to being a chief, to being a university employee?
I think one of the lessons that I've learned, and it's primarily that I've learned from students and interacting with students, everybody perceives us through their lens. And it's easy to be dismissive of what someone else thinks. If someone doesn't like the police and they're like, oh, your tactics are bad or whatever, you're doing as the police is not what we want as a community. I think far too often police are dismissive of people with those opinions. And I'm reminded of this because of your book. I mean, you wrote about a lot of things in your book that many in police leadership roles would be like, they'd bristle at them. Like, wow, this is like, you came out hard, with some of those topics. So to me, it's not like whether I agreed with you or disagreed with you. It's like, well, this is your reality. And you felt strongly enough about that reality that you put it in print and published it.
I don't know if that was a good idea.
Hey,
time will tell. Yeah.
But like, there's real value in that. Or when I'd learned from a group of students that something that we were doing as a police department was being perceived in a way that it wasn't intended, like, that's real. Like, I could easily dismiss that opinion and say, well, you're perceiving this wrong. But the reality is, like, they're receiving a message from us that was unintended. And there's huge lessons to be learned there. Like, not everything we do is received the way we want it to be received. And there was some real interesting examples. Like during COVID, we needed to buy some police cars. And the only thing that they buy, if you remember, like, you couldn't buy a car. You couldn't buy anything. Bicycles, nothing. Everything was sold out, on hold. Production was limited. Yes. And the police vehicles that were available were black in color. And our previous ones were white in color with like a gray type of a graphic. So we bought the only thing that was available because of what we needed. And then I heard from students like that, oh, LUPD is trying to hide from the students and sneak around. That's why they bought black cars. And I knew there was nothing further from the truth, but it was like, wow, that's an interesting perception.
And the students tell you this? Or did you ask?
Yeah, well, we were undergoing a LUPD review committee. There was a group of faculty, staff, and students, and it weighed very heavily in students and underserved communities that conducted a real deep dive into the police department, policies, procedures, perceptions, a lot of interviews, a lot of town halls to really get feedback from the community of like how we're doing, the job that we're doing, and how we're perceived. This is one of the things, one of many hundreds of things that came out of that, but it's just one that strikes me now as it was so unintentional, but and it wasn't just one person's perception. And another one of our officers pitched an idea of using cruise lights. So as you know, we use the cruise lights, and that's like illuminated lights at about a 30% level, the red and blue lights on each side of the light bar to give more visibility to the police car. So somebody pitched the idea to me, and we adopted it. And in no small part because of that piece that, okay, well, this will completely erase this perception that we're trying to hide. We're literally turning on our lights 24 hours a day as a signal to like, this is where we are. We're not sneaking around. We're not trying to catch people doing things wrong. We're here as a resource. So I don't know.
The data from that survey, did you take that and implement a lot of stuff? Like, is that important as a chief of a police? Like, this is data I can use to make this place better?
Absolutely. Other than that, it was just a pointless exercise. Right. So really absorbing and taking in, that the opinions of the community that we're here to serve. And to me, there's no higher purpose. I mean, that is what we're here to do. And working in higher education, working on a university campus, a residential research university, is just so different than working in a municipal police department because of this community that we serve, that they're all here for a purpose, their own singular purpose, whether they're here as a professor doing research, teaching and scholarship, or you're here as an undergraduate student trying to get that graduate degree in your first job, or here as a doctoral student, whatever that purpose might be. Our role is to serve that end, whatever it is. Whatever you're here to do, we're here to help create an environment so you can do that successfully. So, like, to me, listening to those voices of how we're being perceived, there was nothing more important than to listen to that and adapt and adopt new measures to just help that goal.
Do you feel like with the perception of police in the media and the public just generally, that you find yourself having to counteract some of those narratives that, look, we don't experience that on Lehigh, but people think these things, even though it might not be going on here?
Yes. When I started at Lehigh, I was naive to believe that the population that perceived the police that differently were typically international students who might come from authoritarian regime type communities and countries, and they come here and don't understand that we are here to actually serve them. Through the years, I've definitely learned that valuable lesson that it doesn't matter where someone comes from anywhere in the country. That can be their real lived experience. And that's a challenge. We're not dealing with a community that's kind of homegrown within one area. There's a lot of policing in certain areas of the country where the overwhelming majority of the people they serve were born and raised in that small town. Wow. In this community, we have about 10,000 people on campus. Probably very few of them, percentage-wise, were born and raised in the Lehigh Valley, let alone in eastern Pennsylvania. Right. So all of those cultural beliefs about who are the police, and certainly who are university police, and then drilled down more, who is the Lehigh University Police? Like there's nothing there as far as a history. We have to continuously, daily, create that that good impression and prove ourselves every day.
Yeah. So interesting on that. Sergeant Marks and I went to lunch at the cafeteria, Rathbone Cafeteria Dining Hall, a few weeks ago, and the tables were full, nowhere to sit, so we ended up sitting with a student. And we just got to talking with the student about his background, asking him questions, being curious. And he started talking about he's an international student, where he's from in an Asian country, and we asked about the police in his country, and he just started telling all these stories of how corrupt the police were, and money that's a very low economic country, so everybody's kind of trying to get their piece, and that naturally leads to a little bit of greed and corruption of trying to get more from this group. And it just really opened my eyes, and we started asking him about, what do you think of the police here at Lehigh? And he goes, it's like night and day from where I'm from. I actually trust you. I like you guys. You smile at me. And it's just a great lesson of we're changing narratives every day, and we don't even realize it. And especially here at Lehigh, which is so progressive and forward thinking. I just think it's a fascinating.
Well, I mean, that warms my heart to hear that story, but that doesn't happen by accident, and it can't happen without us going out there and making an effort all the time. Because if we just existed in the background, that person's perception is going to be what it was. They're going to see a uniformed officer in a police car, and how could they not just draw the parallel to what they believe from their home experience or their lived experience to here?
I think it's cool that we're breaking narratives or breaking perceptions. That student's going to graduate most likely and go and have this successful career, and we were able to broaden that perspective that before coming into this, he just thought that one way based on his experience. All right, so I do want to ask you a question about, you're a very busy guy, and I relate to that because it's hard to sit still. You always have things you're working on. If you don't mind, I'd like to see, what is like a typical day in the life of you? Like, what time do you get up? What time do you go to bed? What do you do in the middle? How do you get your day organized?
It varies. So, I mean, one of the things that I think most police have loved about the job is that there isn't a typical day, and that doesn't change. If anything, it gets less typical. Well, I don't know if this is true. I was going to say less typical the higher the ranks that I achieved. But like one of the coolest things I remember as a young police officer, when the shift would start and you'd do all your equipment checks and you had your roll call briefing, you'd get out in the car and like pull out of headquarters, like I could do whatever I wanted to do. Like there was officers that went out and did traffic enforcement. That wasn't my thing, but the day it just takes on a life of its own when the radio crackles and the call comes in and this is what you're doing today. So I have plans every day. So every day, I'll wake up like 5:30, 5:45. Depends. Depends on the day. At 6 a.m., I get an email every morning, and that's the overnight briefing. So an email comes in from our dispatchers. It gives me the synopsis of the last 24 hours. So I basically, that's the first email that I'll read every day, if I'm up around that time, or I'm always up before then. Just to see, did anything happen overnight that I need to be aware of, something that we need.
And has that ever altered your day based on what you read?
Oh my goodness, that's, yes. So I'd say, one of the things I would do, if I read those overnight reports and maybe there's nothing in there that really needs a whole lot of attention, then it's looking at the calendar and see what kind of day is, on the agenda. But often I will show up at work and, you get hit with something, or, something happened overnight, or something's going on right now, some system went down, whatever that issue might be. And I had an agenda, I had a plan, I wanted to work on this policy. I've got 3 or 4 meetings on the calendar, and the day just goes completely sideways because now there's something that's a much higher priority.
Yeah.
So having the ability to pivot and go into those other things, it's awesome and it's wonderful and what I love about the job. And it also is no shortage of frustration because those things that I was planning on doing don't go away.
Right, right.
They just get pushed till tomorrow, which was already full. So especially when my kids were younger, I developed a bad habit of kind of punching back into work after the whole house went to sleep. Mm-hmm. So depending on their age, it got difficult when they got older because they were staying up later. When they were young and they're going to bed at 8:30, it's this is nice. By 9 o'clock, I can, open up my laptop and
now they walk the halls at midnight.
Right now they're staying up later than I want to, but it developed into a bad habit of mine. Starting to get work done midnight, 1 a.m., 2 a.m. I'd have coworkers chastising me, what are you doing sending me an email at 2:30 in the morning? It comes with the territory, but
is that the professional in you? You want to do excellent work. You want your department to do excellent work.
Yeah. It's a character flaw, and I guess I'm happy that I have it in some respects, but it's detrimental to physical health, mental health. But I had it when I was in Bethlehem Police. Had it in law school. I went to law school while I was an active police officer. So I worked.
What was that like?
It was fun.
Was it demanding? The schedule demanding?
Yes. It was during that period of time where I was the sergeant in charge of that community police unit. And it was a rare job in the police department where they wanted me to work Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 3 p.m.
That doesn't happen.
Doesn't happen, but it allowed me to go to law school. So I went to Temple Law, and that was 4 nights a week. So I lived about 20 miles north of Bethlehem. So that was, up at 5:30, get ready, get into work, because you had to be at work half an hour, 45 minutes before your shift started to get ready for the shift. So I worked 7 to 3, then it was shower, change around, get in the car, drive to Philly. Classes started at 6, ended at 10:30, and it was either 10:30 or 10:45, depending on the night of the week, 4 nights a week. Drive home, I'd get home just before midnight, and then I'd have to study because there was no time in the day. So then I would do my law school reading until 2:30. I tried to get to bed by 2:30 in the morning because I had to get up at 5:30 again the next day. So if I could get 3 hours of sleep Monday through Thursday, and then you'd go to work Friday, and I'd come home, and I needed to get 8 hours from Friday night into Saturday morning, and then I'd study all day Saturdays.
And you're a dad and a husband at the same time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You look back on it and wonder how you did it all?
Yeah, but it was it was such a challenge. You ever were in the middle of something so hard?
Oh yeah.
It was. I had a goal. I had a dream.
Did you always want to go to law school?
No, I don't know. I didn't always want to be a police officer either. So
you find yourself in situations.
Find myself in situations, and it seemed like a natural progression. No, I loved it. I miss it. I kind of miss law school. It was challenging.
Yeah.
So
now as a chief, If, let's say there's nothing big going on, last night you worked late because I was here and you're one of the last ones shutting your door. And just, again, I admire that. What are you going home? Have you got to a point now where you can try to separate a little bit, or it's still challenging to not read the emails and see what's going on?
Well, on my way home last night, the call came in that there was a flood in Williams' house, the dorm, burst pipe. So turned around,
Oh, you came back in?
called my wife,
Wow.
let her know, whatever. We had other stuff going on. So yeah, I came back in, went there. Just only there for maybe 45 minutes or so, and then got home and some stuff going on with my son. He's taking his driver's test, which he passed his driver's test today,
Nice.
Which is pretty awesome. But then I got the message that the pipe burst in the university center, so then it was working on those messages, and we have a crisis management team and sending out messages to them, and just making sure everybody who does need to know knows everything that I know.
How does that work? Does that fall under campus safety, the division? Like when a water break, I wouldn't think immediately, if I didn't work at a college campus, I wouldn't think that's a chief of police responsibility.
Yeah.
Where does that fall for you with campus safety?
So we have this campus safety division, and there's this umbrella that includes police, security, our dispatch, our ideal office, which is the identification, electronic access, and locksmith, environmental health and safety, and life safety. And life safety is fire detection, fire suppression. So it somewhat falls under that. Life safety would be going there. But to me, it's the community caretaking role that we have. So anything, our police, of course, as you know, we respond to any type of calls of emergency. If there's a pipe burst, we're certainly not the ones doing all the work. There's ABM, there's facilities people. They're there. Teams of people working to help that. Housing services, not dining last night, but residence life. Everybody's like pitching in, and people all over the place there to make sure that the students are cared for. Students are going to be displaced, having to find other rooms, and just making sure that we're providing whatever we can support for whatever needs to be done.
That extra level, people notice that. People pay attention to that, and I applaud you for that. All right.
So I'm sorry, I'm just going to.
Yeah.
So one of my, we'll talk. I'm sure we'll talk about pet peeves, but I got a pet peeve of municipal policing. Often police would say something like, they'd get called to some type of incident, and I'm sure you heard it in your time. That's a civil matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that was just like the catch-all that any city cop is going to use. Like,
it's not a police matter.
This is complicated, and it's not a criminal matter. Yeah. I'm out. So that doesn't exist for us. Like every single thing has some component to it of making sure this community is cared for. So, that's not my job. Isn't a possible response for any of us, in my opinion.
So on that, what do municipal police officers not understand if they never worked for a university? I'll be honest, I may have judged university cops when I was a municipal detective. I just was ignorant. I didn't have that experience. I thought that's kind of beneath me. I'm arresting drug dealers and going after street robbers. But then I come to university, and I actually think it's more challenging because you have to wear both hats. You still have to do that when it happens.
Yeah.
But generally, you have to be very attentive, selfless, personable, likable, approachable. Where municipal, it's easy to kind of sit in your car. Very tough job, but you don't have that community engagement unless you're in a community service unit.
Yeah.
Where here, everyone's a community officer.
Right.
So we're wearing all these hats. So did you expect that when you came here, or you kind of knew that what you're in for?
I didn't expect it to the extent. I think I had some idea because I spent so much of my municipal career in community policing. And I thought, I shouldn't say I thought. We did a really good job. Bethlehem was held out to many other communities as being, like a gold star community police department. We did it really well. And it only scratched the surface of what community caretaking goes on a college campus, on a university campus like Lehigh.
Did you feel when you were in the community service unit at Bethlehem that can be, it's a great thing, it's a great idea. Obviously, the intent is amazing to connect with the community. Can that be a detriment to the rest of the department?
Yeah.
Because they feel like, I don't have to do that touchy-feely stuff. Jason and his unit will do that.
Yeah.
Well, really, we all have that expectation. We all just elevate a little bit. That transcends our relationship.
There was a lot of division within the department among those who thought we didn't do anything. and we were referred to as the Grin and Wave Squad and a lot of other, derogatory terms. And I found it interesting because as a community officer, so it was like the first or the only groups of officers within the department that had true responsibility for a neighborhood. So we were geographically based. Myself and a partner worked in the southwest section of Bethlehem, which was, like I said, around Lehigh University. And we got to know everybody here. And whether it was, the business owners, the permanent residents. At the time, it was back during street level drug dealing. Like we knew all of those players, all of their street names. We knew all of it because we lived in that community. I spent more waking hours on duty as a police officer in South Bethlehem than I did doing anything else, than at my house, for sure, because most of my hours at home, I was sleeping. So like I was embedded.
Did you find the crime guys, even though they might bust your chops about they would always call you if they needed street information?
Absolutely. If there was something bad that happened, a shooting, a homicide, or something like that, we were the first call because they might have gotten a tidbit, of a street name or something, whatever it might be. And I remember my partner Mike and I, we'd get the call. This is whatever happened, and like, can you help? And just like, yeah. By the end of the day, we'll have what you need.
Wow.
Just getting that intel, because if we didn't know who it was, certainly we knew the people that were willing to talk. And that was probably one of the real valuable lessons. As a night shift police officer in Bethlehem, I worked in the same area. I worked either on the east side of Bethlehem or on the south side. I had a lot of judgmental opinions about the people that lived in that community. And it was a lot of negative interaction. When I became a community officer and got to really know them and sit down with them and sit at their kitchen table and get to know people, or we'd host block watch meetings, I was astonished at how many great people lived and worked and called that community their home. And they didn't like the bad things that were going on every bit as much as we didn't like it too. And so there were, if you really spent some time, but you had to build that trust long before you needed it. And if you built the trust, when that day came, those people were willing to talk. And that's, so I know I don't think I answered your question a couple questions ago about the, like when I was coming to Lehigh, was I expecting, like as what I found here, and that how difficult the community policing could be, or how challenging. One of the things that happened shortly before I got to Lehigh was the tragic death of Timothy Piazzi at Penn State. So that incident, in no small part, was caused by fear of repercussions. There were so many people that knew he needed help, and for whatever reason, they didn't call for help. So like studying that, learning about that situation, and once I came to Lehigh, to me that became like, that's got to be the number one reason I do everything in this job, is to try to break down the barriers that will prevent somebody from calling for help. If somebody is ever in that situation and they need help, we want them to call. So like, to me, everything else that we do is all great, but the underlying purpose is to build trust so that the people here trust us enough to call when it really matters.
That's interesting you say that. The medical amnesty policy we have here at Lehigh has been something we really intentionally push out and remind these students that we're here to help you. Call us. We're not here to punish you. Part of our job, unfortunately, is we do deal with crimes, and students may be possession of drugs or get involved in fights or things like that. But generally, we care about them. We want them to be well. So call us so we can help you. And I imagine not even every university has that level of community. You're building that trust every day. And I'd imagine it could easily be taken away with one false incident or officer misconduct. Municipal cops, I love this topic. I want to get back to this. Municipal police officers, university police officers. What do you find to be the commonality that makes good municipal cops become good university police officers?
I mean, caring about other people. I think somewhere along the way, policing, generally speaking, kind of lost its way of having that at its core. So as long as somebody actually can find it in themselves to care about other human beings, I think they have everything it takes to be great at this job, and just look at every situation and see, like, can I make it better? Can my interaction, can I intervene in some way and make a situation better? Can I help somebody out?
So when you're interviewing somebody, you're bringing somebody in, you're sitting them down, you're considering them for employment to be a Lehigh University police officer. What are you looking for? What are you looking at?
So, generally speaking, we're only interviewing people that are already qualified for the job. So you're just trying to find out what's in their head and what's in their heart. What kind of human being are they? And that's not, it's impossible to really tell that. There's people that can put on quite a show. But to me, that's what I'm looking for. What kind of human being are you? In that moment of truth, are you going to look the other way and decide not to help somebody, or you're actually going to just, choose the difficult right over the easy wrong? Right?
So we say it's so easy. I was going to say so easy, but it's not.
It's not.
And it's not common either.
No.
Yeah. So would you say soft skills are as equal to technical skill? If you're looking at a resume, somebody's an expert with firearms, they have countless arrests, all these expertise. Does that matter to you as much as their personality and how they can be? Or it's like, how do you look at that?
Yeah, it matters somewhat, but nowhere near as much as their heart. Nowhere near. You can train the right person to do this job. Right? If they want to do this job and they have the right mentality and the right heart, we'll train you. We'll send you to the schools. We'll send people to the police academy, whatever that takes. But somebody with the longest resume in the world with a bad attitude, like, they're going to go out there and do damage. They're going to destroy everything we're trying to build.
Wow. I mean, I've seen it. I know you probably have seen that kind of that, I want to say bad egg, but that officer doesn't care as much. I always think about this when we talk about it internally in detectives, is there's people that play cop, people that want to be a cop. And we've all seen that. And I think for those of us that really are professionals and we take this line of work and serving others very seriously, even us, we in the field get frustrated when we work with people who, somebody needs help getting in their luggage, or they slipped on ice and they look down at their phone and their watch, they pretend they didn't see it. That rubs us the wrong way too.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, so my favorite section, the Jason Schiffer Pet Peeves.
Oh, boy.
So I want to talk about this because some background for the audience is we do sit in your office at times and we talk about solving the world's problems. And we have these great ideas, at least sound good on paper and in a conversation. But you've been around a while, you're a lawyer, you have this eclectic background and nuanced experience. What are some of the things that in your course of action you're just like, they drive you crazy?
All right. I mean, apparently there's a lot, as I've been told. There may or may not be running lists in some people's offices.
I think there may be, yeah.
So, I mean, a couple of things that will come to mind. I don't like when people say give 110%. I don't know why that bothers me, but maybe it's just the mathematical purity of it. Like, we can give 100%, and that's all we can give.
Why do you think we say that?
I don't know. I think it came from an exaggeration to drive the point home. And it probably came in Little League coaching or something like that, some type of environment.
Why is it 110? Why is it not 115?
Right?
120.
Exactly. And I'm often reminded, I don't remember what movie it is, but you'll hear a reference to, there are people on a nuclear submarine and they would take the reactor to 110%. And I'm like, we're not nuclear reactors. We can't run beyond what we can run at. And I don't know why that's a pet peeve. It just is.
I get that.
Okay, a couple other things. There's an overuse of apostrophes. So I guess this would all go under grammar. But there are sometimes people just a word ends in an S. They're like, yeah, I'm going to throw an apostrophe in there when it doesn't belong. And I'm like, does this word own anything?
Does that pop out to you when you're reading?
It pops out, yes. And maybe that came from, so when my first job at a law firm, the the owner of the law firm, the principal of the law firm, he was a real stickler for grammar and exactness in the complaints we filed, the paperwork we filed with the court. And I appreciated that so much. He would say, this is your one shot to get it right. And if the other side picks up whatever documents you drafted and they see a grammatical error or something, it's a mistake, it just undermines like all of your credibility. And and that's really carried with me.
Interesting. Interesting. Any others?
Yeah, the undefined use of acronyms. Higher education is, policing, higher education, probably any technical field is inundated with acronyms. I'm often in meetings with a really diverse group of individuals. They could be professors or senior leadership teams, people that are, real experts in their areas. And of course, in the policing world, people will throw around an acronym as if all of us in the room know what you're talking about. Or in writing. So again, in writing, for everybody that knows, if you're going to use an acronym, first you write out all the words, and then parenthetically you put in the acronym behind it, and then you may use the acronym for the rest of your writing. Drives me, yeah.
Do you feel embarrassed when you have to ask? I don't know what that means.
Yeah. Well, more and more I'm feeling more comfortable doing that, and I feel like it's this subtle way of calling people out, listen, not everyone in the room has any idea what you're talking about. And what really is funny, because sometimes people will speak in these acronyms and then others in the room are raising their hand and countering the arguments, and then I just feel like, oh wow, I am small in this room, like everyone else seems to know, and I'm not privy to the secret language they're speaking.
Funny.
And then, so probably the last one. This is a big one. We have seen, probably media is responsible for this more than anything, of appending the suffix "gate" on the end of anything that was a controversy or something that went wrong. And we've heard of the New England Patriots, Tom Brady, Deflategate, when he allegedly had low air pressure in the footballs. Deflategate, that drives me, wow. So Watergate was a thing. So Watergate was the name of the hotel. It had nothing to do with water. So appending "gate" on the end of anything makes no sense to me. Maybe that's my desire to have things be logical and make sense. So, it was an attempt to subvert democracy. This was not footballs, right? Or whatever else that we append that to. Come on, come up with something original.
Yeah.
Watergate was a real thing. It should stand on its own as a massive constitutional crisis that it was, not
sports conspiracy.
Not a sports conspiracy.
All right, so I want to kind of bring it back. That's great. I want to bring it back to something a little bit more serious.
Okay.
Given the last 90 days, current events in the world and in the region, university security and just campus safety overall, what's your assessment with campus safety here at Lehigh? I know you spend so much time and you meet with so many people that maybe a lot of people here on campus don't even realize how much you care. Maybe they do, but I know you're always working hard to make this as safe and as inclusive as possible, but there are things outside of our control always. Yeah. So what's the current state of, in your opinion, of campus safety here at Lehigh, and what are some things that you're just always striving to keep getting better at?
I think as a division, all those different business units that I mentioned earlier, I believe that we've been in existence now. It's probably our 4th year that the divisions existed. I feel like we're finally hitting our stride in finding our place and really making measurable differences, whether it's in environmental health and safety and transforming, laboratory safety and the way we're dealing with hazardous gases and chemicals and all the research that, the amazing people at Lehigh want to do. From the more physical safety aspect, it's an interesting time. There's a lot of discussion and debate of what should the look and feel of safety be on campus. There are numbers of people at the university that, and we're not alone, but that feel that even the presence of campus police makes them feel less safe. That's a huge hurdle to overcome.
Yeah.
And then there's enormous parts of the population that feel the exact opposite. So we can't look at, well, most people feel one way and dismiss the others. There's some exciting things being developed. We're working hard with a lot of others, people from LTS and senior leadership teams across the university to bring a much more dynamic access control model to the university using mobile credentials where people will be able to access their spaces using their mobile device or their watch, like you mentioned, Apple Watch or other things like that to get in their spaces rather than having just the ID card. And that brings with it a lot of other possibilities of like the profile that we have at the university, the access control, whether spaces should be secured more, and just to make sure that everybody who needs to get in a place can get where they need to go, but maybe not allowing anybody to get into those spaces. So there's a lot of discussion around those issues, and they're not simple issues, and there's almost as many opinions about what we should do as there are people at the university. So I think one thing that I've learned is we can't look at just consensus. We don't look at, well, if there's 51% of the population thinks we should do a thing, well, that's a mandate. I don't care if it's 75%, if it's 95%. There's still a number of people that might have a really valid opinion that needs to be taken into consideration. So the nuance that exists in this realm, I think, is challenging and kind of what makes all of this worthwhile.
How do you, I know policing is everywhere, struggles with this, is the perception of crime and the reality of crime.
Yeah.
How do you navigate that when you're interacting with stakeholders here on campus who have concerns, legitimate concerns? But you also have the data, you also have some information that they may not have. How do you meet them where they're at to hear their perception of what is bothering them and also fill the gap and well, maybe it's not as bad, and here's the things why it's not as bad?
I think transparency is got to be the biggest answer to that question. Just being fully forthcoming with what I know, what are the statistics that are happening here or happening elsewhere, and what measures we're even proposing to put into place. And I think police have made mistakes in the past of maybe trying to sell a thing. If we do this, then we're gonna, that will solve this problem. And as we can see, those who have intent on circumventing any type of a system, whether it's banking or police or security type systems, people find a way around almost anything if they have the intent and the will and the means to do so. So we got to make sure we don't oversell things and just be completely honest with everybody and listen to their concerns.
I mean, making everything rosy and ignoring the issues is not helping anybody, I imagine. How do you can't promise complete safety and protection, you just can't do that. But there are a lot of things we do here at Lehigh University PD and campus safety that do go a long way to prevent and mitigate a lot of things. So how do you navigate, people sometimes want assurances and you can't give assurances, but then you can fill the gap and say, but look at all these great things we're doing, and here's why I'm confident this will work.
Yeah, I think the educational piece, open dialogue, and implementing things like layered types of security. Like, yes, we cannot. I've used the example in recent meetings that prisons are not completely secure. People have gotten out of prisons that they wanted to keep in, and by all means, contraband gets into prisons all the time. So if that's not a completely secure environment, we're foolish to think we can create a completely secure environment. But we can intelligently layer security and give what some of the measures do is give us some abilities to detect certain types of behavior. Because I think at its core, that's the types of things that we can identify. We shouldn't be policing based on what someone looks like, that they look out of place. I mean, that's the, that's not a good not a good thing at all. And it's not good for even the public. As you know, we often get called because somebody doesn't look like they belong. And unfortunately, police get dispatched to those situations, and then now we're inserted in this situation because somebody else felt that way.
Right.
And it can really have a negative effect. But if we employ, good measures that can help make our community safer, I think it gives us the ability to see behavior that's trying to subvert like those types of measures, and it makes that behavior stand out more.
Yeah.
And if it's just that one little thing that can help us identify somebody that might be intending to harm others, that's a good thing to consider in a way.
How do you feel about technology just in this line of work and keeping people safe and protecting property and people? I mean, how do we leverage that here at Lehigh? What have you learned over your course of your career?
Technology is a true double-edged sword, I think. It's easy to look at it as a salvation and a tool that works so well. And some of it does work really well. And I think we've employed some measures at Lehigh that are working really well. And I'll talk about that in a second. One of the things I'm really concerned about is the rise of like AI, facial recognition, detection, and then some real studies showing the false identification of individuals, and especially individuals in marginalized communities being on the wrong end of technology identification. So I'm really, really wary of that technology, at least as it exists today.
I think a lot of people are. We don't know what that's going to look
right.
like. Right.
And then on the other side, not without a small amount of controversy, but license plate readers have proven to be one of the greatest tools we've added to the university, because we have a network of closed circuit cameras across campus, which served us well. And when we added just a small number of license plate readers at entrance points to campus, it elevated the effectiveness of those cameras to a level that I didn't anticipate. I thought it would be a good tool. I didn't realize how many crimes it would solve, and then how many bias incidents they solved within even the first week, I believe, that we installed the first license plate readers. We had some individuals not Lehigh related, but driving by and yelling inappropriate things to somebody walking down the street. But now we were able to identify who they were, which in the past would have just been impossible, because a lot of people don't realize it's not at all like TV. You can't just click buttons and enhance video images and read a license off a regular type of a security camera. It takes a very high-end type of a camera. So being able to provide closure to people that have experienced instances like that, and I've seen that reaction in people, okay, we've identified the person, and most of the time, maybe the victim of something like that doesn't necessarily even want somebody arrested, but they want some kind of closure. They want somebody to have to answer on some level.
It makes sense.
For that type of behavior.
And getting back to the layering you're talking about, I think sometimes we invest in one technology over another and thinking that's our end all be all. But I appreciate you saying that. You have to have good cameras. You have to have an LPR, license plate reader. I mean, you have to have good patrol, active patrol. It takes multiple stages to have good campus and public safety. Yeah. Not just, hey, we got these cameras, we're going to be good now.
Right.
Yeah.
And at its heart, you have to have people that our community trusts, or none of it matters at all, right?
That's interesting. All right, so last thing I want to do is a segment called What's Cooking in the Lab.
Oh, boy.
Lehigh Labs, all right. So what is it? I know you're a chess player, not maybe literally, but you don't play checkers, you play chess. Okay. I've learned that about you, very intelligent man, which is in all the good ways. So what are you working on now that you can share for campus safety, maybe for the next 6-12 months for our community here, that can make their life better, safer, anything positive?
Well, without a doubt. I mean, I've already mentioned it, so maybe this is it's cheating. It's a free answer. But the mobile credential piece, I think, is a really big change that is coming. It's been a heavy lift. There's been a lot to it, a lot more than I think most people even would have imagined. But just that piece, giving that, capability of, being able to access spaces. And I think that now that also flexibility that we can begin to discuss what spaces should be more secure and still allow, people to have, the proper access.
With a mobile credential net, you think that'll reduce some of the lockout calls we get? Just because if they don't have their ID, everyone has a phone in their hand usually.
Typically, right?
Yeah.
Well, most of the time they're calling from their device.
Right.
They forgot their key or their card. That's the idea. I mean, in practice, we'll see what happens. There's a lot more work that needs to be done. Like if you look at some of our dorms, Singleton, Maida Hitch, Broadhead House, the Warren Squares, they all have electronic access on all of their doors, the outer doors and the bedroom doors. So that's a game changer for the lockouts there. And already we have significantly lower lockouts in those buildings than we do in the buildings where someone has to carry a physical key.
Right.
So I think
makes sense,
I think it will carry through that once the phone will get them in everywhere. The new dorms that are being planned and built they will all be electronic access. The challenge and the heavy lift is retrofitting the existing spaces.
So is every individual room going to have now a sensor on it, or still just the main entry points to the buildings?
So if you go to like Singleton, Maida Hitch, every single bedroom lock and lock into the living spaces, they all have the card reader, which will also work on a
And that's
phone.
the plan is to roll that out campus wide.
Yes, I mean I don't know what the timeline is, but new construction, certainly has it. The new dorms will have it. So at that point, we'll have the new dorms, which I think is 374 beds.
Wow.
Singleton, Maida Hitch was a sizable, Broadhead sizable. We still have a ways to go, but that's there'll be a good percentage.
What else are you working on now? Because I know you're always in your office thinking about things. You're having meetings. So, and I know you empower a lot of the sub-leaders in the agency to make this community a lot better. This podcast is one of them. You're a big supporter of it because it's getting information out to the community. It's hopefully humanizing the people that they see out on campus in uniform. They can say, oh, I've seen that guy or girl. And so there's a lot of good benefits of this podcast. But again, that's in line with your vision of getting and doing more. I know you're never somebody that's satisfied with, you just sit at your desk, we're good, we got everything figured out. So how do you keep yourself proactive in a healthy way to keep working on initiatives and programs?
I mean, I think they just, they develop almost on their own or with people's ideas. I mean, you couldn't be more correct. I will never ever, if I ever come to work and I feel like I'm satisfied, that's time to pack it in. I don't think anybody in my role should ever feel like they're done. There's always room for improvement, always.
Interesting. That's fascinating to me. Would you think everyone in your position has that same mindset?
In my position?
Like a chief of police elsewhere or everywhere?
I would hope so, but I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, it makes a lot of sense.
How can you look at, if you're in charge of the safety of 10,000 people in a 1,600 acre campus with 180 some odd buildings at an R1 research institution, like how could you ever possibly think your work is done? Like there's no way. There's always something that can be improved.
I bet you that's one of the reasons you're very successful.
I don't know.
You're always moving. No, I mean, it brings up a good point. There's always a problem to solve.
Sure.
And even more than municipal policing, I feel like like you said earlier with, the water break, and there you are responding. I feel like here we have even more of an ability and responsibility to solve problems that might not even be in our normal reach or purview. So yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me that there's problems out there on campus. It's up to us to either meet people where they're at or find them ourselves and fix them.
Yeah.
And it might not be a public safety. It could be an emergency call box, well, that's part of public safety.
Sure.
But
we're also internally within the department, processes that can be improved. What can we do to make the job of the police officer and the security guard more efficient? Like what can we do to give them back time? Like make whatever it is less tedious, just eliminating redundancy, eliminating some things that we don't need to do to make sure that we have the time to do the things that we need to be doing. Like that's going to be a never-ending process. You can never have the most efficient. I don't think I'm wrong about that. You can never be as efficient as you could. Like there's always
something. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah. And I appreciate that because we bring that up now. We have John Buskirk, the new assistant chief, And I know he is very much of the same mindset of let's find out what we can get better at and get better at it, because it saves us time, saves us money, saves us energy, saves us stress.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love asking why.
Yeah.
Like, what do we do? Like, we have to do this. Well, we have, a crime report, and then we're going to make a copy of this and put it in a folder. Why? Well, in case we need it.
Did you always do that? Ask questions?
Yeah.
Did it get you in trouble?
So, early on, even back in Bethlehem, I got involved in an initiative that was started by a mayor with continuous improvement. And they brought in people from Air Products that were specifically trained in improving processes. And I got trained to help lead some of these efforts. And then we would identify and attack areas within the city. And like, one of the things was down at our city garage with the mechanics working on all the cars, all the vehicles owned by the city, and like looking at like where they needed to go to get parts for a car, tools, and back and forth. And if we could like literally just move things around their shop to create a situation where that person had to move less to get the same work done, you're improving efficiency. And like, to me, like there was a term that the continuous improvement, they drew a lot of things from Toyota. That there was a Japanese term called Gemba, and it was they would teach the senior leadership they'd say, get out to the Gemba, and the Gemba is where the work is being done. And the idea was we could sit in a conference room all day long and try to think about how to improve a process, but until you get out there and talk to the people that are doing the job, you're wasting your time. Get out to the Gemba, find out how the job gets done, and then see if there's a way now from that leadership role, what can I do to help that person do their job more efficiently? Like, I love that.
So when people come to you and ask you, Jason, why are we doing this? Is that, you welcome those kind of conversations?
Sure, yeah.
And does that help you as you answer that and explain that? Do you do an internal checklist? I imagine you do, knowing you, oh man, maybe we could even make this better while I'm talking about it.
Yeah. If I don't have a good answer to that question, the answer is that process that needs to go on a list for improvement.
The list you'll get to 2 months from now.
Yeah.
All right, well, before we go, gratitude is really important to me. It's really helped me a lot in my life and weather some storms and just look at life through a positive lens. I think we all could do a better job by just thinking daily, being intentional with gratitude. What are some things, or one thing or some things you're grateful for right now in your life?
There's so much. I'm grateful to be working at a place that allows this type of environment and discussion to be going on. Like, what a wonderful position to be in. I'm grateful, like, to be as privileged to be in a role where I can help other people. To me, like, there is nothing greater than to be able to spend my time and energy helping others. And that's like why I'm here. So a lot of people on this planet need help from others. And to be one of the people in this huge team of people, and I would say virtually everyone at the university is falling into this category on some level. That we all have this privilege to be someone that others are looking to for help, for guidance, for knowledge, for whatever that is. And just the enormity of that privilege to be somebody that can help other people, guide them, teach them, protect them, whatever that answer is. That's the greatest thing there is.
It gets back to humanity. Why are we here?
Yeah.
What's our point?
Yeah.
And awesome. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Thank you.
it. Thanks for coming in today. And until next time, we'll see you later. Thanks for watching Labs Unleashed. If this conversation inspired you, challenged you, or made you think differently, subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. Share it with a friend or a colleague building something new. And if you have a story or idea that deserves to be unleashed, we want to hear from you. Until next time, stay curious, keep cooking, and unleash the best version of you.